Welcome to the 30th reading of my memoir, The Innocence of Guilt. The pain of being bullied. I leaned on David for so many things. For a while, he did my maths homework in exchange for me writing his English compositions. He could write well, but maths came easily to him, and writing took more time. Writing was indeed the only thing I could do for him, and I would have continued, but our ruse was discovered. Still, one area of my school life my younger brother would never be able to help me with was the daily bullying I encountered. I met it in the classroom, the playground, the canteen, the lavatories, and while walking home. One day my hands bled from the nails of a girl who had hit out at me, and instead of washing the blood off before I went into class, I left it there, tired of hiding my pain. I hoped the blood would be noticed by the teacher, and she might ask me how it had happened. Throughout the 45-minute lesson, I spread out my hands on the desk, palms flat, streaks of blood covering the tops of them from my wrists to the tips of my fingers. I waited for my bizarre offering to be mentioned. Minute by minute by minute, the teacher droned on with the lesson, and the blood slowly dried. The wounds were mere scratches and only smarted a little, but the blood was my evidence. By the end of the lesson period, nothing had been said about the messy state of my hands, not even by the girl sitting next to me who must have seen it. I sat there while all the pupils filed out, followed by the teacher, leaving me all alone at my desk. Blinking away the tears, I went to the cloakroom and rinsed my hands under the cold tap, accepting utter defeat. I gave up any thoughts of the bullying ending in school. It became part of the whole school experience for me, but outside in the streets, I believed I deserved immunity to it. I developed strategies to avoid being set upon by the particular group of girls who made my life such misery. I hid behind the bike racks after school until everyone left, then nervously made my way up the slope to the entrance at street level. If they'd gone, I could carefully walk my regular route. Mum gave me bus money for the journey home, but I usually spent it on sweets, checking that they weren't hiding behind some corner along the way. If I saw them ahead of me at any point, I'd have to backtrack and find a safer but longer route, causing me to be home later than usual. I attached myself to anyone who would walk with me after school, whether I liked them or not, as long as I could use them as a human shield. My desperate need for companionship led me to fall in with some dubious types who were into mischief of the kind I wouldn't normally be part of. I attached myself to a group of children with vandalism in mind at a greengrocer's shop opposite the school. Protected and accepted the way a wolf must feel in its pack, I followed them, agreeing to be a part of their mischief simply to experience the thrill of belonging. We all went behind the shop and tipped over the crates of fruits and vegetables, throwing them around the yard, smashing them against the wall. By the time we finished, it looked as if one of Hitler's bombs had fallen on the area. Once home, the reality of what I had done hit me hard. I thought of the poor man going to his shop and discovering the damage in his yard. I wanted to own up to it, but too scared to tell my parents, I wallowed in the guilt instead. There seemed no way out for me. I lost good friends faster than I found them, and foolishly made bad ones because I had such a desperate need to belong to somebody. Some girls from this same group explained the ease of stealing from the newsagents near the school, as the elderly man who ran it wasn't very smart. You waited until he climbed the 3 little steps at the back of the shop to get something for a customer, and used that moment to grab something. They made stealing sound such fun and common sense because the shop stacked sweets galore on the shelves at the front counter. One little roll of sweets would never be missed, and they dared me to try it. I wanted their approval, so I did it. I left the shop with a roll of fruit-flavoured spangles and made them last all the way home, the pleasure of their sweetness temporarily easing the pain of my far from sweet existence. Then the guilt set in. Again, fear stopped me owning up, but I did put it right. It took a while, though. I bought a roll of spangles from a different shop and decided to put them back on the shelf at the first opportunity, imagining it would be as simple as taking them. It wasn't. 2 agonizing weeks went by before I could get the elderly shopkeeper to turn his back. So much for him not being smart. I'm done for if he decides to stop me and search my pockets. He'll never believe in a million years that I'm trying to give him back his roll of spangles. My dad will never believe me either. My mother was summoned to the school, told to visit the headmaster's study and take me with her. Up the winding set of stairs no child ever climbed unless something serious was afoot, we went. I sat on a bench outside while she disappeared behind the forbidding doorway of the most powerful teacher in the school. Muffled voices reached my ears. I didn't get called inside, which in one way was a huge relief, but it kept me wondering what the outcome of the visit would be. Mum said nothing to me on the way home. Relieved to have escaped trouble, I knew I created it in one way or another. A little later on, I suspected a particular teacher to be responsible for Mum's visit. He'd bumped into me one day after school as I listlessly hung around window shopping in the high street. A habit of mine, dawdling home, miserable over my despairing situation with the bullies, painfully aware that not even home promised total security. I had no idea of the time and that school had been out for the best part of 3 hours. The shops were shut, it poured with rain, and I was drenched. The teacher stared at me as if in disbelief at the sorry, bedraggled sight masquerading as one of his pupils. "Why aren't you at home in this weather?" he said. "Don't you know how late it is? Your mother will be worried about you." I didn't answer, but slouched along in a dream-like state. When I arrived home, Mum took one look at me in horror and said I'd catch pneumonia for sure. She peeled my wet clothes off and sat me by the coal fire to warm up. After that encounter and the visit with the headmaster, Mum started showing up at the top of the school slope with her dog to accompany me home. This hadn't been a habit of hers since my early school days, yet there she appeared every afternoon, causing me embarrassment and a burden of responsibility she knew nothing about. If she thought it helped me, she was mistaken, as her presence gave my tormentors new ammunition with which to attack me with. In the playground, they made degrading remarks about my mother's personal appearance. Those words hurt me far more than the attacks on my own person. The more I protested, the more they carried on, and I feared they might push her around the way they pushed me. My heart ached to think of poor Mum, standing in innocence at the top of the slope, unaware of the horrible things being said about her. I told her she needn't come to meet me, but she seemed hurt, as if I was ashamed of her. How can I handle her hurt feelings while struggling with my own problems? It didn't seem to matter how hard I tried to be a good, well-behaved pupil. Something always seemed to go wrong. The rules and regulations didn't work either, so eventually I gave up on those, but not without good reason. Thank you for listening. Please feel free to subscribe, like, or comment on this reading, and hopefully you will tune in to the next one. Bye for now.